Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. So, the title of my paper is Sylphs and Goblin Transcending the Central Binary of Gender in Terms of Corporeal Epistemology. A case study of the rape of the lock and the goblin market. So, where I will deal with these two topic separately a little. So, in Rape of the Lock, we see Belinda's dream where he is visited by the sylph Ariel. So, when we are talking about Ariel's delocalized gender becomes a biological maneuvering in the hand of Alexander Pope. He does not suffer from pathogenic or genetic disorder, but a psychological movement from masculinization to feminization, where the Pope anticipated the genital reassignment surgery that happened in 1921, almost like 150 years after, is of course debatable. But he was definitely aware of the idea of the gender dysphoria or GD, or gender identity disorder, that is GID, though they are not being diagnosed in the 18th century, of course. This is what causes a distress in a personal experience as a result of the sex and gender that they were assigned at birth. Pope never clearly stated that Ariel is the genetic male with one X and one Y chromosome with androgen insensitivity syndrome, AIS, are resistant to androgens. Rather, he was more focused in the politics embedded in the male body outside the genetic or pathogenic formulation. On the other hand, the character of Ariel exhibits genetic female with two X chromosomes with congenital adrenaline hyperplasia, lack an enzyme needed by the adrenaline gland to make the hormones cortisol and aldosterone. Without these hormones, the body produces more androgens, and as a result, the masculinization takes place in both pathogenic and cellular level. The research that Zhao inaugurated when he delved in trans woman's brain structure in 1995 to evaluate the volume and density of neurons, he discovered that it is similar to cisgender women's, and unlike cis men's and trans men's, men apostrophe s trans men's is similar to cis men's even when controlling for hormonal use. And I quote, in 2002, a study by Chang suggested significant sexual dimorphism in BSTC did not become established until adulthood, theorizing that either change in fetal hormone level produces change in BSTC synaptic density and other factors which later lead to the observed differences in BSTC, or the differences are affected by the generation of a gender identity inconsistent with assigned sex. And I end my quote here. Here, the feminine body is presented as vulnerable and threatened by the phallic hegemony, which is subscribed by Pope to be the result of their varying vanities, which shift the moving toy shop of their heart. The word toy shop is very significant as the plasticity of Belinda's heart is brought out, and so is her existence as the other, where she is bereft of emotion and remains simply as a symbol to gratify masculine sexuality. This is a reference also to the introduction of the use of prosthetic heart in place of a natural one, which again happens almost 2 centuries after Pope have written it. The prosthetic heart in Belinda is thus the genesis of post-humanist plasticity of existence. The heart is no longer natural, as Belinda is the sex doll Barbie of Pope. This post-humanist discourse seems a perfect fit. The post-humanist discourse dissolves the binaries between human and non-human. In the 21st century, medical devices have become sophisticated enough to replace the function of heart with prosthetic or artificial heart. So, what we see here is not only the Sylphs, but Belinda itself or herself has become it, the post-human. Now, when we are studying Christina Rossetti's biopolitics, almost 100 years after Pope, 150 years after Pope, what we see is Christina Rossetti locates the biopolitics of male culture in her world of text, where female is not only the other, but also her body becomes a center of mapping the structure of language and enforcing the logic of silence. Foucault supplements that biopolitics deals with the population as a political problem, as a problem that is at once scientific and political, as a biological problem, and as a powers problem. I end my quote. With respect to language, man is both the biological problem as well as the powers problem when it uses female body as the text of their violence. And therefore, the textuality and sexuality becomes together into a sexuality. What Helen Sixou says in Le Rire de Méduse, that sexuality, where S-textuality is there. Rossetti emphasizes the viability of Foucauldian politics in understanding the genomics and exercise of the mutating the biopolitical space for the women. The Goblin culture has eroded the biospace of the female, and therefore their logos are doomed in the space of silence. Now, here, Goblins are never mentioned as male. We should remember that Christina Rossetti never did that. Now, the Cartesian principle has scissored body from mind, soul, and has given birth to the fetus of discourse, where we have re-evaluated the fracture in identity, both in case of Ariel and the Goblins, and tried to locate the vacuum and fill it up with signifiers. So what we have here are the signifiers, more and more signifiers, and also we have the ANT, actor network theory, supplementing the corporeal epistemology of Belinda and the body and her body outside the skin. Epistemological questions concerning a healthy diseased body or cured body is also a part of study when we see Laura in this and Lisa in the space of dysfunctional Derridian rupture. And as we near the end of my presentation, I would like to point out that both in the Ariel and the Sylphs in the text, as well as the Goblins, kind of facilitate a life beyond the humanist principles of gender category, of binaries. There are no binaries anymore. There are no male and female only. There are heterospaces. There are micro-narratives that we have to understand when we are dealing with both the Ariel and Sylphs and that of the Goblins. So when we see Barbie, yes, it is, yes, I know. So Barbie says in one of the brilliant advertisement that life in plastic is fantastic, and this emphasizes the use of fetish of the otherness of the gender, and thereby dooming the space of sexual fetish and rape, or in the rape of the lock, into a more plastic subjectivity. And therefore you see that Belinda is not another being in Heideggerian idea. She is more like Arabella Farmer 2.0. So from plastic to silicon to TPE material to finally the AI sex robot, we have seen the sex dolls have moved ahead to become the most agreeable companion offering sex and pleasure. And this is exactly what Pope anticipates 2 centuries before, where he provides the body of a woman as a sexual plaything for the male idios in the idios and idos as supplementing their sexuality. So I would like to conclude with one particular line that, both the goblins and the Sylphs presents a challenge to be interpreted not in terms of male, female, or the binaries, but if you draw a Venn diagram, there will be a more than enough space for the third and fourth and LGBTQ and the queer. So their space of queer is not something we should negate or we should forget. Thank you.